going to go around the bases with our MLB insider at the New York Post, Jon Heyman. Jon, how you doing, man?
I'm good. How are you, Ryan?
I'm doing well. We want to start off with our first topic here, and Aaron Judge and the New York Yankees and the glance controversy. We saw in the first game of this 4-game set up in Toronto, Aaron Judge was spotted by the Blue Jays broadcast, glancing over at the Yankees dugout in the middle of his at-bat, and he ended up hitting a monster shot to center field in that game after the glance. And this got the entire MLB world discussing, was this cheating? So let's set the record straight, Jon, and ask you, was it cheating? Did Aaron what Aaron Judge was doing in that game, would you consider that cheating?
First of all, let me say that's not cheating. Whatever he was looking at, it's not cheating, which I think we all kind of agree on now. I know this was a couple of days ago, but this is a big topic, and I'm glad we're going to discuss this here. First, I want to touch on the Blue Jays announcers, Dan Shulman and Buck Martinez. They didn't do anything wrong. I understand there's some Yankee people that were a little put off by this. The camera obviously caught him glancing, looking over at something to his right. There's no question about it, and it was certainly a worthy topic to discuss. And look, we're discussing it 3 days later, so obviously it is very, very interesting. I mean, I will say this, the people I've talked to think that his cover story, a little bit unusual. It's hard to understand why he would be looking in the dugout. I understand that Aaron Boone wasn't happy with the strike zone. He'd been barking at the umpire, eventually did get thrown out. So, that could be a bit of a distraction, but seems to be unlikely to be a distraction for a great hitter like Aaron Judge. He's going to be concentrating on that pitcher. If he's looking away, he's only going to look at something that's going to help him, not distract him from hitting. So the people I talked to do think he was probably glancing over at the first base coach, and maybe the first base coach could pick up a sign, maybe picked up the pitcher tipping the pitch. Possible he could see maybe the catcher wasn't careful in disguising what the pitch that he was calling was. Not sure, but I would say that's more plausible than Judge looking in the dugout, which is pretty far to the right, although maybe his very talented eyes. I don't know. Maybe I've got my own cheat sheet here. I'm glancing over at my papers. So we all do a little glancing. There's nothing wrong with glancing. And it's not cheating. I mean, unless you're doing something with electronics, you're banging a drum, that's cheating. If you're looking at the first base coach who's picked up something, not cheating. You're able to look over and glance, look back, and hit a 462-foot home run. You deserve that 462-foot home run. So not cheating. Blue Jays announcers, all good. Judge, to me, that's all good. Although from the people that I talked to, the cover story, little funky. He told it very well, so I give him credit for that. He's probably a very good actor as well as a good ball player, but I'm glad you brought that up. I wanted to talk about it, and not cheating. Nobody's at fault here except obviously either the Blue Jays pitcher or the catcher who didn't disguise the sign.
Now, what's interesting is this kind of took on a life of its own the rest of this series. That was only game 1 on Monday, and then we saw what happened in game 2. We heard the Blue Jays bench hounding Luis Rojas at the third base coach for not standing in the box. That was one of the things brought up about the first and third base coaches are outside the boxes. And there was that controversy. You had Aaron Boone and the Blue Jays bench jawing at each other. The camera's picking that up. This series really did take on life of its own. And then we had Domingo Germán get tossed in the very next game on Tuesday for sticky substance, which was actual cheating. Now, Jon, if you remember, we talked about Domingo Germán earlier this year when he did get caught in the home game where it was the same umpire crew. They said, you have too much rosin on your hand. You got to go wash it off. So he was already on their radar. What did you think of Aaron Boone talking about Domingo Germán, saying it's his responsibility, he needs to know better? Like, can you talk a little bit about the situation with Domingo Germán? Like, he should probably know better in that situation that they're going to be checking and looking for that sticky substance.
Right. First, on the coaches in the box or outside the box, the coaches are rarely in the box. But if they think that the hitters are picking up signs from the coaches not in the box, they can be a quibbler and say, or stickler and say, those coaches should be in the box. And technically they should be, but no coaches are ever in the box. So maybe that's what that controversy was about. I did enjoy the manager of the Blue Jays saying, "Shut up, fat boy." And we took a day to figure out who the fat boy was. And it was Brad Wilkerson. It's like, to me, I wouldn't call somebody old. I mean, it was a little bit odd, but I thought it was entertaining. So I give them credit. This has really spiced up this rivalry. The whole thing has. Germán obviously was cheating. This is the second time he was caught. He got a pass the first time. I think the umpire was lenient. We saw Rocco Baldelli got thrown out because the umpire was a bit lenient in that case. And, they don't want to throw anybody out. I get it. I don't blame the umpire. But in this case, this is the second time this guy's done this. And really, there's nobody to defend him. He certainly couldn't appeal it. Everybody knows he's guilty, and he's really going to have to watch it. He's had some good games. You wonder, is he going to be able to pitch well now that, presumably he's not going to do this anymore? I don't know, but you never know. There are guys who get caught cheating over and over and over again, right? Didn't the Mets have a reliever like that who kept getting caught with PEDs? So some guys are just addicted to the stuff, but hopefully he can get by and pitch without this stuff.
Yeah, it was, like I said, it was one of the most entertaining series I think I've seen in a long time between the Yankees and Blue Jays, and it did spice up that rivalry, and hopefully we can continue to see that develop over this season. John, let's finally move on to our next topic here in the New York Mets. The young guys are getting the call up, and they're starting to make their impact on this team. We saw Mark Vientos get the call up on, I believe, Wednesday, hitting that two-run home run, game tying. These guys are making impacts. Francisco Alvarez hit a ninth-inning home run as well. What can you say about the Mets finally calling up these youngsters and making their impact? Should they be playing every single day?
Well, I think they're going to break Vientos in slowly. I think he will play, if not every day, almost every day. They're going to ease him in like they eased in Beatty to some degree. He started batting eighth. He's now been up to fifth on occasion, which I think they need a number 5 hitter. So hopefully one of these guys can be the number 5 hitter, whether it be Beatty or Vientos, because there really is no prototypical number 5 hitter to bat behind Alonso there, who's clearly one of the best cleanup hitters in the game and is doing great on his own, leading the league in home runs, despite not having that great number 5 hitter behind him. It's, to me, very interesting that you've got the highest paid team in baseball history, $377 million. You've got 3 rookies who are going to be playing a lot right now in Beatty, Alvarez, and Vientos. And I think that fourth one, Mauricio, is going to come up. I couldn't tell you the exact date, but I think people in that clubhouse are now thinking about, we're going to have 4 rookies in this lineup regularly. That is unusual. That is not something we expected with a $377 million team, $480 million if you count the tax. It is interesting. And look, Mauricio looked great in the spring training. He's got a 991 OPS right now. He's been shifted from shortstop to second base. So, if he proves he can play second base, I see him coming up here before too long. Certainly, a lot of the veterans have lost playing time. Escobar, certainly Vogelbach and Pham will lose some playing time here with Vientos up. And ultimately, if you get Mauricio up, McNeil, very valuable guy, he can move to the outfield from second base, and maybe Canha will lose some playing time. Canha and Marte have really not hit very well. Can't imagine they're putting Marte on the bench. Certainly a star. He's got the star contract.
Right.
He's got to get going. But I would say Canha would be the guy who would lose playing time if Mauricio does come up. And I do expect Mauricio up before too long. He hit some long home runs in spring training. Very impressive. Nobody was more impressive than Vientos, but they were all impressive in spring training.
Yeah, Mauricio continues to stay hot in the AAA. So he, like you said, hopefully we can see him come up to the majors making his impact soon. John, let's go to our next topic. It's a new topic we're going to start each week. We're going to call it the disappointing team of the week. And I wanted to ask you right now in Major League Baseball, there are a lot of disappointing teams right now, teams that we expected to be performing a lot better than they currently are. Who's that team right now that you're looking at as your disappointing team of the week?
Right, and it's not the Mets fans. You're not even the top 2 or 3. It's amazing how many disappointing teams there are. Phillies have been very disappointing. The Cardinals have been disappointing. They're playing much better now and showing their offense. The White Sox have been an extreme disappointment. But my disappointing team of the week is the Padres. They have just been terrible. 20-24, and obviously I'm a little annoyed because I picked them to win the World Series. There aren't too many teams that are 20-24 and win the World Series. We did see the Nats have an even worse record than that in 2019, come back and win the World Series. Doesn't happen often, but this team with 5 superstars, counting Yu Darvish, the pitcher, this should not be a 20-24 team. Now, Soto's starting to hit better, but Machado still isn't playing up to his capability. Bogarts has cooled down a bit. Tatis, for him, not really up to expectations. We've seen Blake Snell is struggling a little bit in terms of the rotation. And then certainly they're missing Suarez, who was an incredible setup man. We saw that in the playoffs against the Mets when they eliminated the Mets. This team should not be 20-24. You see that manager Bob Melvin's face every day. I don't think he can believe it, and I certainly cannot believe it.
Yeah, it's certainly, like you said, it's been a disappointing start for them, and they have a lot of star power in that roster, and hopefully they can turn it around here. Let's bring it all home, John, and let's talk about top MVP candidates you have so far this season. We're at the quarter point in the season now. A lot of guys are making their impact on these rosters. Who's your MVP candidates right now that you're looking at?
I think the two choices are pretty clear right now. The one choice is obvious. There's no argument. There's no discussion. Ronald Acuna Jr. has been incredible, leads the league in just about everything. 3.1 WAR. If you like that, you like a 378 batting average. He leads in that. 437 on base. He leads in that. 1,050 OPS. He leads in that. And all these newfangled categories, which I can't name right now and didn't write down on my cheat sheet. He leads in all of those too. So Acuna is clearly the MVP leader in the National League. In the American League, it's Ohtani. I know people were saying I was anti-Ohtani last year when I jumped on the Judge bandwagon about halfway through the year and said it was clear that Judge was the MVP. And eventually, everybody agreed that Judge was the MVP, except for the two voters in Anaheim, Orange County, LA, whatever you want to call it. They both voted for Ohtani last year. Judge was the MVP last year. We know that. This year, it is Ohtani. I'm not holding it against him that this is the only guy who does both. I mean, that's amazing that he does both. You give him credit that he's able to do both. He's hitting well. He's pitching even better. He's among the leaders in a few pitching categories, including strikeout and whip. And to me, Ohtani is the MVP right now in the American League. I would say there are some others that are doing great. Semien has been fantastic. Adolis Garcia has been great. Franco with the amazing Rays has been great, as has a Rosarena. And I mean, Judge certainly in the mix. So we may end up with a Judge Ohtani MVP race again. But right now, Ohtani leads that race. I hope if Judge is watching this, I hope he doesn't think I'm negative on him, because I think he was peaking as I'm peaking too. So people can peak. You're allowed to peak. That's okay. And I think he is in the MVP race, though. This time he's losing it.
Listen, I think Ohtani's motivated after last season, not winning that MVP, and he seems to be ready to go again this year. John, thank you so much for going around the bases and covering all the topics that we can today. Appreciate you as always, man.
All right. Thanks, Ryan.